They buried him, didn't they? In silence, in shame, in whispers. They said he was done, finished, forgotten. They said heaven had taken him because he failed, because he lost, because he didn't fit their picture of victory. They laughed when he disappeared, called it karma, called it justice, called it over. But they forgot something. Heaven doesn't waste survivors. Sometimes it takes you out, not to end you, but to rewire you. Sometimes it buries you just to prove that you can rise without anyone's permission. See, what they don't understand is that when heaven sends someone back, they don't come back soft. They don't come back the same. They come back quiet, sharper, dangerous. The kind of dangerous that doesn't roar anymore. It just watches, plans, and moves. Because the fall taught them everything the world tried to hide. Pain became their teacher. Loss became their language. And silence became their weapon. Heaven never sends someone back without a mission. When you've been through the kind of fire that strips away your ego, your illusions, your comfort, you don't return the same. You come back with purpose in your eyes and silence in your soul. The kind of silence that carries weight, the kind that speaks louder than words ever could. You see things differently after you've been broken. You start to understand why it all had to fall apart. Every betrayal, every delay, every night you spent asking, why me? It was all part of your redesign. Heaven doesn't recycle weakness. It refines warriors. It doesn't send you back to prove a point. It sends you back to fulfill one. You thought it was over when everything was taken. You thought the story ended when the lights went out. But that's the thing. Endings don't exist for people chosen to rise. What felt like death was only transformation in disguise. You were being rebuilt in private, while the world laughed in public. They thought your silence was defeat, but it was actually your cocoon. They thought your distance meant you gave up, but you were only gathering your strength. Heaven doesn't rush restoration. It waits until the scars tell a story strong enough to speak for you. When heaven sends someone back, they come with eyes that see through the fake. They've learned to read the truth between smiles, to feel energy before words. They can't be fooled anymore. The same tricks that broke them once don't work now. They've learned what real looks like. Pain taught them discernment. Loss taught them patience. Silence taught them power. They no longer chase approval because they've already faced rejection and survived it. They don't seek validation because they've learned that real worth doesn't need applause. When heaven sends you back, it's not for recognition. It's for execution. You start to move differently. You don't react. You respond. You don't rush. You observe. You're not desperate for opportunities anymore because you finally understand that what's meant for you won't need to be begged for. You've seen how heaven works. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It aligns. It positions. It orchestrates. You realize that everything you lost was simply clearing the stage for what's next. People left because they weren't part of the next scene. Doors closed because they were too small for where you're going. Heaven doesn't waste movement. Every silence, every setback, every delay was divine choreography. And now, when you return, you walk with a different kind of peace. Not the peace that comes from things being easy, but the kind that comes from surviving what should have destroyed you. That quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've already met the worst version of yourself and you didn't stay there. You've seen the bottom and you didn't drown. You've faced the fire and you didn't burn. You carry proof in your presence. You don't even have to explain anymore. People can feel it. That weight, that authority, that calm chaos in your energy. It's the mark of someone who's been rebuilt by something greater than pain. When heaven sends someone back, it's never to blend in. You weren't restored to fit into the same rooms that rejected you. You weren't rebuilt to play small again. You carry divine timing inside you now. You've become a mirror. When people look at you, they see their excuses reflected back at them. You expose comfort. You challenge weakness. You remind others of what's possible. And that makes people uncomfortable. They'll whisper again, question you again, try to drag your past back into the light. But it won't touch you this time, because what broke you before doesn't have access to who you are now. You outgrew the version of yourself that used to flinch at their words. Your return isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving heaven right. Every tear, every season of isolation, every unanswered question was evidence that you were chosen for more. You were pulled away to be recalibrated. Heaven doesn't send soldiers into battle without sharpening their blades. That's what the pain was, sharpening. That's what the silence was, training. That's what the waiting was, alignment. And now that you're back, you realize something profound. The mission isn't to rebuild what was lost, but to build what never existed before. You come back understanding that the assignment is bigger than revenge, bigger than validation, bigger than success. You've become a vessel, a messenger, a living contradiction, proof that divine delays aren't denials. You embody resilience. You've become living evidence that heaven doesn't forget who it's invested in. When you walk now, heaven moves with you. You feel it. In the timing, in the peace, in the way doors open without you forcing them. You realize you were never waiting on heaven. Heaven was waiting on you. Because when heaven sends someone back, it's not to restart their story. It's to rewrite the world's version of it. You were sent back with truth in your scars, purpose in your silence, and fire in your bones. Everything that tried to end, you only introduced you to the version of yourself that cannot be broken again. The fall was never failure. It was the classroom heaven used to strip away everything fake about you. You thought it was punishment. You thought it was rejection. You thought life was breaking you down. But really, it was breaking you open. That fall was never random. It was surgical, precise. Designed to expose what you were depending on that was never meant to hold you. You called it loss. Heaven called it training. Every time you were betrayed, abandoned, misunderstood. That was your strength being built. That was your armor being forged. Heaven doesn't send warriors untested. You can't fight with a soft heart that's never been cracked. You can't carry purpose with hands that haven't blood. You see, everyone loves the idea of being chosen until they realize what it costs. The spotlight feels good until the fire starts. You prayed for power, and heaven answered with pressure. You asked for growth, and heaven gave you pain. Because that's how heaven works. It never gives you blessings in comfort. It gives you lessons in chaos. It teaches you endurance through storms. You don't become unshakable by being treated gently. You become unshakable by losing everything that made you fragile. That's what the fall was doing. Pulling out the weakness you wouldn't let go of on your own. When you were down there, when you thought it was over, something started to shift. The noise stopped. The distractions faded. All the fake smiles, the temporary friends, the hollow validation, gone. And suddenly it was just you, alone, exposed. That's when heaven started speaking. Not through voices, not through miracles, through silence, through the stillness that made you face the version of yourself you'd been running from. That was the real test, not surviving the fall, but facing yourself in it, seeing your reflection without the mask, admitting what needed to die inside you for the real you to live. You learned what kind of strength silence builds. The kind that doesn't brag, doesn't beg, doesn't break. The kind that sits in the darkness, feels the pain, and still whispers, "I'm not done." You became your own rescue. You stopped waiting for someone to pick you up and started standing on your own. You found out that rock bottom isn't the end. It's the foundation. It's where you stopped performing and started becoming. It's where you discovered that the fall didn't destroy you. It introduced you to who you really are. You see, the fall has a way of revealing your addictions. Not to substances, but to control, to comfort, to approval. You thought you needed people to believe in you. But heaven wanted you to believe in yourself. You thought you needed validation, but heaven wanted you to build conviction. So it took it all away, not to hurt you, but to free you. Because sometimes the only way to teach you strength is to remove everything you thought was keeping you safe. When you're being trained, heaven doesn't explain. It just applies pressure. It lets the pain shape you. Every loss becomes a lesson. Every delay becomes direction. Every heartbreak becomes a higher calling. You learn to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Because the truth is, you weren't being punished. You were being prepared. The old version of you couldn't carry what's coming next. It was too emotional, too reactive, too dependent on approval. So heaven put you through a season that felt like destruction, but was actually preparation. You stopped chasing what was never meant to stay. You stopped trying to make people see your worth. The fall taught you that validation is cheap and peace is priceless. That sometimes you have to lose everything fake to gain one thing real. And when you finally stood back up, you didn't rise the same. You rose quieter, stronger, smarter. The kind of strength that doesn't flinch when things fall apart again. Because now you understand the pattern. You understand that nothing real ever leaves. The fall made you dangerous in the best way. It killed your need for approval. It erased your fear of starting over. It taught you that being broken isn't the end. It's the beginning of becoming indestructible. Now you move differently. You don't react to noise. You don't chase validation. You don't seek revenge. You've seen too much to waste your energy on proving points. You've learned that silence is louder than words, and peace is stronger than power. When heaven sent you back, it didn't send you to repeat what was lost. It sent you to rise above it. You're not fragile anymore. You don't need their permission, their understanding, their applause. You've already survived what most couldn't handle. That's your training. That's your proof. The fall wasn't the end of your story. It was the rewriting of it. Every scar became scripture. Every wound became wisdom. And now, when you move, you don't move like someone who fell. You move like someone who learned how to fly, without the ground ever needing to understand how. Silence rebuilt what pain destroyed. That's the part they'll never understand. That the silence they mistook for weakness was actually where everything inside you was being reborn. When you stopped talking, when you stopped explaining, when you finally stopped trying to prove your side of the story, that's when heaven started rebuilding you. In the quiet, after all the noise died down, after everyone left, after the chaos ended, you began to hear yourself again. Not the version that was performing, pretending, or surviving, the real one. The one buried under years of noise, guilt, and noise disguised as love. Pain tore it all apart. It stripped you of your identity, your safety, your certainty. It left you standing in the ruins of everything you thought you needed. That's what pain does. It destroys illusions first. It takes everything fake and rips it away until only the truth remains. You thought you were breaking down, but you were being stripped clean. The silence wasn't punishment. It was reconstruction. Heaven knew that as long as you were surrounded by noise, you'd never truly hear your purpose. So it quieted everything. The calls stopped, the messages stopped, the attention disappeared, and suddenly, there was no one left to distract you from yourself. At first, the silence was unbearable. You kept reaching for something to fill it. People, validation, old habits, anything to drown out the emptiness. But the more you tried, the louder the truth became. The truth that you'd been living too fast, chasing too hard, pretending too well. You were surviving on noise. And when heaven took it away, you mistook peace for loneliness. That's how disconnected you had become. But slowly, the silence started to heal you. You began to understand that quiet doesn't mean absence. It means clarity. It means you're finally in a space where lies can't hide anymore. In silence, you started to see who you'd become while trying to please everyone else. You started to recognize how much of your strength was performance. How much of your peace depended on people's opinions. How often you kept smiling while dying inside. The silence held up a mirror you couldn't look away from. It made you face the parts of yourself you kept running from. The insecurity, the anger, the guilt, the grief. And though it hurt, you stayed. Because for once, you weren't trying to escape it. You were learning from it. You were letting it teach you instead of trying to numb it. That's when the rebuilding began. Quietly. Invisibly. The kind of rebuilding that doesn't make a sound but changes everything. You stopped chasing closure and started creating distance. You stopped demanding understanding and started finding peace. You realized that not everything broken needs to be fixed. Some things just need to be left behind. You learned to protect your energy like it was sacred, because now you understood that not everyone deserves access to your peace. You started speaking less, listening more, and letting silence do the talking for you. Pain had destroyed your trust, your hope, your faith in people, but silence restored it, not in them, but in yourself. You stopped waiting for someone to save you, and remembered that you were never powerless. You just forgot your strength while trying to carry everyone else's weight. Silence reminded you of that strength. It reminded you that power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just breathes, watches, and waits. That's what made you dangerous now. Your ability to sit in stillness without losing your mind. You learned how to find peace, even when everything around you was falling apart. You see, silence teaches discipline. It makes you realize how much energy you use to waste explaining yourself, defending yourself, trying to prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stopped doing that. You stopped needing to be seen. You stopped needing to be right. You started to understand that not every storm deserves your thunder. Sometimes the best response is stillness. Silence rebuilt your confidence in a way words never could. It made you patient, observant, untouchable. You started to feel power in doing nothing, in saying nothing, in letting truth reveal itself in time. The world thinks healing looks loud, tears, speeches, declarations. But real healing is quiet. It happens in the moments no one sees. It happens when you wake up and don't feel the weight you carried yesterday. It happens when you realize you can be at peace without closure, without revenge, without anyone apologizing. That's what silence gave you. The ability to move on without needing an audience. The ability to exist without needing to explain your piece. When silence rebuilt you, it gave you new eyes. You started to see through people. You started to notice energy instead of words. You could tell who was genuine, who was draining, who was pretending. You stopped engaging with chaos because you recognized the peace you'd fought too hard to find. You stopped responding to the things that used to provoke you because you realized that not everything deserves access to your peace. You came back from that silence unrecognizable. Not louder, not angrier, but sharper, still, a calm storm. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You've been rebuilt in the dark, and now your presence alone says everything that needs to be said. Pain destroyed what was fake. Silence rebuilt what was real. And now you don't seek peace. You are peace. The kind that can't be shaken. The kind that doesn't need validation. the kind that comes only from surviving your own noise and choosing not to go back. Funny thing about pain. It doesn't just break you, it rearranges you. It takes everything you thought you were and scatters it across the floor, piece by piece. And when you finally start putting yourself back together, you realize some parts don't fit anymore. Some pieces were never yours to begin with. You were carrying what others left behind. Their expectations, their guilt, their fear, and you wore it like it was your skin. That's why when it all fell apart, it wasn't destruction, it was purification. You were losing what was never meant to stay. You see, everyone wants transformation, but no one wants the pain that causes it. They want the glory without the grind, the peace without the storm, the wisdom without the wounds. But it doesn't work that way. The only way heaven rebuilds a person is by letting the old version die. Every disappointment, every betrayal, every sleepless night, it wasn't random. It was surgery. Unseen, uninvited, but necessary. You begged for strength. And heaven answered by removing your crutches. You wanted to know your worth. So everything that didn't value you had to walk away. You thought it was punishment, but it was preparation. It's strange, isn't it, how you only start to understand purpose when everything falls apart. How the most painful chapters end up being the ones that shape you the most. It's almost poetic. How you had to be broken to finally see what was real. You learned that some things fall apart so something stronger can rise in their place. That not all endings are tragedies. Some are transformations wearing a disguise. When people left, when doors closed, when you were pushed to the edge, heaven wasn't abandoning you. It was isolating you, molding you, breaking the noise around you, so you could finally hear your own heartbeat again. That isolation wasn't loneliness. It was alignment. You were being recalibrated. The people who misunderstood you, the opportunities that vanished, the silence that surrounded you. All of it was rearrangement. Because when heaven is about to elevate someone, it first removes distractions. It strips everything that doesn't belong where you're going. And that stripping hurts. It feels unfair. It feels like you're being punished for trying. But what you don't see is that every loss was a form of protection. You were never losing anything real. You were only shedding illusions. The rebuilding doesn't happen in front of applause. It happens in the dark, where no one sees the fight. It happens when you cry and still get up the next day. It happens when you want to quit but don't. It's in those small, invisible moments where heaven sees your persistence and whispers, "Keep going." And even though you can't hear it, your spirit does. That's why you're still standing. Because something deep inside you knows this pain isn't the end. It's the transition. People talk about miracles like they're sudden, but they forget that most miracles are built in silence. Slowly, painfully, patiently. You've been building one without even realizing it. Every time you chose forgiveness over revenge, peace over chaos, discipline over comfort, you were building it. Every time you walked away instead of reacting, every time you stayed soft in a world that tried to harden you. That was the miracle forming. You just couldn't see it because transformation doesn't announce itself. It creeps in, one quiet decision at a time. And maybe that's the trick. Heaven doesn't send blessings wrapped in gold. It sends them wrapped in chaos. Because chaos is the only language that wakes people up. You wouldn't have changed if it didn't hurt. You wouldn't have grown if they hadn't left. You wouldn't have learned peace if you hadn't drowned in noise. That's how it works. The same storm that tried to break you ended up baptizing you. The same fire that tried to destroy you forged you into something unburnable. Now when you look back, you don't even recognize the version of you that begged for things that would have destroyed you. You don't crave validation anymore. You don't chase love that costs your peace. You don't explain your worth to people who can't see it. You've learned that silence is louder than words. That distance is sometimes the best answer. That peace is the prize, not the payment. You've stopped fighting for people to understand you. Because understanding isn't required for destiny. Everything that happened was a setup. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every failure. You were being positioned for something you couldn't see yet. That's why heaven had to break your comfort zone. Because you wouldn't have moved otherwise. You were too loyal to your old life. Too attached to what felt familiar. So it had to be taken. You had to lose what you thought you needed so you could become who you were always meant to be. And now, the rebuilding is almost complete. You can feel it, can't you? The calm before everything changes. The strength you didn't ask for but somehow earned. The wisdom that came from wounds that no one saw. That's what it means to be rebuilt. To walk through the fire and not smell like smoke. To be cut open by life and still find beauty in the scars. To lose everything and still smile because you know it wasn't really loss, it was transformation. Revenge is the easiest road, the most tempting one too. It calls to you in the dark, whispers in your ear, tells you how sweet it would feel to make them pay, to make them regret what they did, to let them taste the same pain they handed you so carelessly. But when you've seen the other side of destruction, when you've crawled out of your own ashes, you start to realize something cruelly beautiful. Revenge is just another kind of prison. It keeps you tied to the people who hurt you, bound by the same pain you swore you'd rise above. It turns survival into obsession, healing into performance. You think you're winning, but you're just bleeding slower. That's why returning isn't about revenge anymore. It's not about proving a point or showing them what they missed. It's about revelation, about walking back into the same world that buried you and letting your existence speak louder than any scream. You don't have to announce your comeback. Your silence does it for you. Because the truth is, the people who betrayed you already know what they did. The guilt lies rent free in their bones. Every time they see your strength, every time they hear your name, every time they realize you're still moving, it stings. They don't need punishment. They're already living it. You see, there's a power in detachment they'll never understand. The moment you stop seeking their validation, you become untouchable. Because you're no longer fueled by rage. You're fueled by purpose. And purpose doesn't flinch. There comes a point where the noise in your head gets louder than the excuses you keep making. Where every lie you told yourself starts to sound ridiculous even to you. You've been stumbling through the same cycle, making the same mistakes, pretending not to notice the mirror cracking right in front of you. You've been calling it patience, but really it's denial. You've been saying, "I'm fine," when deep down, you know you're rotting from the inside out. There's a moment, a sharp, quiet moment, when something bigger than you finally says enough. Enough running from your reflection. Enough pretending you don't know what's wrong. You've been praying for change, but refusing to move. You've been asking for peace, but feeding your chaos. You want new doors to open, but your hands are still gripping the old ones shut. And it's almost funny how you think you can outsmart the voice that built you. You think you can keep playing small while asking for something great. You think you can keep hiding your truth under the weight of your excuses. But there's only so long heaven will watch you sabotage yourself before it intervenes. You keep calling it peace, but it's not peace. It's comfort. The kind that dulls your senses and makes you forget what life is supposed to feel like. You've gotten so used to the numbness that you mistake it for calm. You think because things aren't falling apart, you're okay. But peace doesn't mean quiet. Peace means alignment. Peace doesn't come from avoiding the storm. It comes from knowing you can walk through it without breaking. But you've built yourself a little bubble, haven't you? A safe zone where nothing challenges you, nothing pushes you, nothing forces you to face the parts of yourself you keep buried. You call it balance. But it's really avoidance dressed up as wisdom. You've convinced yourself that staying still is maturity, that not reacting means growth. But deep down, you know that stillness isn't progress. It's fear that learned how to sit still. You've built routines out of your wounds. You wake up, repeat the same patterns, surround yourself with the same excuses, and call it stability. You've been living in a waiting room that no longer has your name on the list. You've been sitting there, hoping life will knock on your door, when life's been outside for years, waiting for you to step out. You see, the comfort zone is the easiest place to die while still breathing. It doesn't kill you with pain. It kills you with peace. It convinces you that because it doesn't hurt, it's safe. But safety isn't always holy. Sometimes it's just a softer version of fear. Sometimes it's your soul begging for more, while your mind keeps whispering. Let's not make things complicated. You don't realize that the longer you stay there, the smaller your world becomes. You start calling your cage home. You start defending it. You start decorating your prison with fake smiles and shallow gratitude. You tell yourself it's better this way. No risks, no losses, no heartbreaks. But you forget that no risks also means no breakthroughs. No losses means no lessons. No heartbreaks mean no depth. You're avoiding the pain that would have shaped you, the pressure that would have refined you, the fire that would have revealed who you really are beneath the surface. You've mistaken safety for survival. You've built your life around avoiding discomfort, and in doing so, you've starved your potential. You've been praying for change, asking for a sign, waiting for something divine to happen. But how can anything change when you won't move? How can heaven send new when your hands are full of old? You say you're ready, but you're not. Because readiness isn't about wanting more. It's about being willing to lose what's familiar. It's about trading comfort for calling. You can't have both. Heaven won't deliver growth to a place you refuse to leave. It'll shake you, frustrate you, isolate you, until you have no choice but to step out. That's why everything feels tight lately. That's why peace feels forced. Because you're trying to stretch inside a space that was only meant to hold a smaller version of you. And here's the cruel joke. You've been praying for blessings that don't fit in your comfort zone. You've been asking for expansion while clinging to contraction. You want the promise, but not the process. You want transformation, but not transition. And heaven doesn't work like that. It can't pour new wine into old skins. It can't send miracles to a place you won't leave. You think you're waiting on heaven, but heaven's been waiting on you to move. The truth is, the peace you think you have right now, it's fake, it's fragile. It only lasts as long as nothing challenges you. The moment life tests you, it shatters. Real peace isn't fragile. Real peace can stand in the fire and still breathe. Real peace doesn't hide from the fight. It looks chaos in the eye and stays calm because it knows who it is. But to find that kind of peace, you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to stop calling your stagnation serenity. There's a version of you buried underneath all that pretending. A version that's not afraid to start over, to lose, to fail to feel. That version is waiting for you to stop making excuses. It's waiting for you to admit that your comfort isn't saving you. It's suffocating you. The peace you've built around avoiding pain is the same wall that's keeping you from purpose. You can't heal in the same place you got sick. You can't find light in the same corners you keep dimming yourself to fit into. You've been quiet for too long. You've been tolerating things your soul was never meant to accept. You've been calling your silence wisdom and your fear humility. But the truth is, you've just been scared to move. Scared to face what comes after the comfort breaks. Scared of who you'll have to become when the excuses run out. You say you're waiting for the right time, but the right time isn't coming. The moment you decide you're done pretending, that's when peace finally becomes real. You keep asking for blessings, but you're still holding on to what's breaking you. You want heaven to send new, but you won't release the old. You say you're ready for the next level, but your habits belong to the last one. You talk about growth, but everything about your life screams resistance. You cling to what's familiar because it feels safe, even though it's suffocating you. You can't see that the weight you call stability is actually the anchor keeping you from moving forward. You've built comfort around chaos, routine around pain, and now you wonder why heaven is silent. It's not silent. It's waiting for you to let go of what you keep protecting. You keep praying for open doors, but you're standing guard over the ones heaven already closed. You mourn what left instead of preparing for what's coming. You think loss is punishment when it's really purification. Heaven won't bless what you refuse to release. It can't build on a foundation that's rotting with fear, control, and attachment. You say you want change, but you keep running back to the same patterns that broke you the first time. You crave peace, but you keep feeding the very things that steal it. And heaven watches, patient but firm, waiting for you to finally mean it when you say, "I'm ready." It's funny how people pray for transformation, but still negotiate with their dysfunction. You want new love, but still entertain the same toxicity. You want abundance, but think like scarcity. You want clarity, but surround yourself with noise. You can't pray for rain and complain when the storm arrives. Growth requires breaking. Blessings demand space. Heaven can't pour into full hands. That's why sometimes everything starts falling apart. Not because heaven's cruel, but because it's clearing the clutter you refuse to put down. You think you lost people, but what you really lost were distractions. You think you lost opportunities, but what you lost were detours. You think you lost comfort, but what you lost was the illusion of control. Every time something left, it was heaven making room for something greater. But you kept trying to resurrect what was already dead. You kept trying to repaint what heaven already erased. You kept asking for peace while fighting the process that brings it. You can't ask for a new chapter and keep rereading the last one. You can't walk into destiny while dragging baggage from your history. Heaven will test your willingness to let go before it trusts you with something real. It'll take away the temporary to see if you're ready for the eternal. It'll close doors that you thought you needed just to prove you can live without them. And when you finally release your grip on what's fading, that's when heaven moves. It's not easy, is it? Letting go feels like dying sometimes, because we attach meaning to things that were never meant to last. We build identity around what was only meant to be a lesson. We confuse endings with abandonment. But heaven doesn't abandon. It evolves. It removes what no longer serves your purpose. And yes, it hurts, because the ego hates surrender. The ego wants control, but control is the enemy of transformation. You can't be molded and still demand to stay the same shape. There's a version of you that heaven is trying to introduce, but it can't exist until you bury the one who keeps clinging to comfort. You can't become who you're meant to be while defending who you used to be. That's why everything that once worked now feels heavy. That's why your old habits no longer bring relief. That's why peace feels distant. It's not because you're cursed. It's because you've outgrown your cage. Heaven won't bless what confines you. It'll break it instead. And if you keep holding on to what's breaking, then the breaking becomes your fault. You say you trust heaven, but trust isn't words. It's release. It's saying, I don't understand this, but I'll let it go anyway. It's choosing to believe that what's taken from you was never meant to last. That what left didn't destroy you. It freed you. But you can't be free if you keep chasing closure from places that already showed you who they are. You can't demand miracles while defending your misery. Heaven's waiting for you to unclench your fists, to drop the dead weight you've been carrying like a badge of honor, to stop crying over what you were supposed to outgrow. Because blessings don't live where bitterness stays. Healing doesn't start until you stop rehearsing your wounds. You can't fill your hands with purpose if they're still gripping pain. Heaven's not punishing you by removing things. It's protecting you from staying small. It's saying, you've been here too long. You're not losing your life. You're shedding your limits. You're not being punished. You're being purified. The reason it hurts so much is because you're trying to stay comfortable in a season designed to stretch you. You're not waiting on heaven to move. Heaven's waiting on you to surrender, because it can't bless what you refuse to outgrow. It's almost amusing how easily people can lie to themselves and still call it peace. You do it too. You wake up, look in the mirror, and tell yourself everything's fine. You tell yourself you're happy, that you're over it, that you've moved on. But your eyes always tell a different story. You've built an entire performance around pretending, and you've gotten good at it. Maybe too good. You wear confidence like armor, laughter like a disguise, and silence like a shield. You've fooled everyone, maybe even yourself, but you can't fool heaven. Heaven doesn't listen to your words. It listens to your frequency. It hears what your spirit is screaming while your mouth stays quiet. Self-deception is the most dangerous comfort there is. It doesn't announce itself like pain does. It doesn't warn you like failure does. It whispers. It tells you that settling is peace, that giving up is acceptance, that silence is strength. It convinces you that you're protecting yourself, when really, you're just avoiding yourself. You tell yourself you're healing, but all you've done is hide the wound under layers of distraction. You've called it moving on, but it's just running in circles. And heaven watches you spin, waiting for the moment you finally stop lying long enough to feel something real again. The truth is, you can't heal from what you refuse to acknowledge. You can't grow from what you keep pretending doesn't hurt. You can't evolve when your entire life is built on denial. You've told yourself so many stories that you've started to believe them. You tell yourself you're fine alone, but deep down, you crave connection. You say you're over that person, but their name still echoes when it's quiet. You act like you've accepted your situation, but really, you've just given up hope. And that's the cruel part about self-deception. It doesn't protect you from pain, it just delays it. It keeps you trapped in the same loop, reliving the same lessons you refuse to face. You can lie to others and survive. But the moment you start lying to yourself, you begin to rot from the inside. You start becoming hollow, numb, indifferent. Nothing excites you anymore. Nothing moves you. You start calling that numbness maturity. You start saying you've grown, when really you've just shut down. You've confused being unbothered with being healed. But they're not the same thing. Being healed means you can look at what broke you and feel peace. Being unbothered means you've buried it deep enough to pretend it's gone. But buried things don't disappear. They decay, and sooner or later, they start to smell. There's a reason your peace feels fake. It's because it's built on suppression. You've silenced so much of yourself that you don't even know who you are without the mask anymore. You've been lying for so long that the truth now feels like betrayal. But the truth doesn't betray. It exposes. It tears down the illusions you've built so you can finally breathe again. It hurts, yes, but it's a necessary kind of pain. The kind that rips away everything false, so only the real remains. You've been asking for clarity. But how can you see clearly when you're the one fogging the glass? You can't move forward while holding on to narratives that make you feel safe, but keep you small. You can't demand honesty from others while you're still living in your own fiction. You say you want freedom, but freedom demands truth, and truth demands confrontation. It demands that you sit with your pain, your guilt, your mistakes, all of it. That you face yourself without filters, without justification. That you stop saying, "I'm fine," when you're breaking. That you stop waiting for someone else to fix what you refuse to admit is broken. The moment you stop lying to yourself is the moment heaven starts moving. Because heaven doesn't bless illusions. It blesses authenticity. It can't pour into a version of you that doesn't exist. It's waiting for the real you to show up. The raw, messy, uncertain you. The one who's tired of pretending. The one who's ready to stop performing peace and start living it. That version of you is powerful, but buried under layers of fear and pride. And every lie you tell yourself keeps that version locked away a little longer. You think you're protecting yourself from pain by pretending, but what you're really protecting is your ego. The truth doesn't destroy you. It destroys who you thought you had to be. It frees you from the weight of your own performance. You've been trying to look strong for so long that you forgot how to actually be strong. Real strength isn't denial. It's honesty. It's saying, yes, this hurt. Yes, I messed up. Yes, I'm scared. And still choosing to move anyway. There's a version of peace that only exists on the other side of truth. The kind that doesn't depend on pretending. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't crumble when life tests it, but you'll never reach it while you're still living behind your excuses. Self-deception might keep you safe for now, but safety and peace aren't the same thing. One keeps you surviving. The other makes you alive. It's funny how people say they want change, but the moment life starts shifting, they panic. They pray for something new, beg for transformation, cry for a breakthrough. But when it begins, when the ground starts shaking beneath their feet, they call it chaos. They call it unfair. They call it too much. You wanted growth, but you didn't want the breaking that comes with it. You wanted to evolve, but you didn't want to lose what's holding you back. You wanted a new chapter, but you're still gripping the last page like it's your lifeline. You can't move forward and stay comfortable at the same time. Life doesn't work like that. Growth is not gentle. Change doesn't ask for permission. It happens when it's supposed to, and it never feels like a blessing at first. There's a strange beauty in destruction. When something falls apart, it's usually because something better is trying to be built. But people don't see that. They only see the mess, the confusion, the discomfort. They don't realize that sometimes the mess is the miracle. The breakdown is the beginning. The chaos is the clearing. The storm doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to remove what no longer belongs. But your fear blinds you. You look at everything that's being taken away and forget that maybe, just maybe, you asked for this. Maybe you prayed for growth, and this is how it looks. Maybe you wanted peace, and this is how it starts. By losing everything that disturbs it. The thing is, when change comes, it never announces itself politely. It shows up like a thief in the night, taking what you thought you needed, forcing you to stand on ground you no longer recognize. It strips you of your safety nets, exposes your weakness, tests your patience. It's uncomfortable, terrifying, unpredictable, but necessary, because comfort breeds complacency, and complacency kills potential. You can't see what's possible while you're still attached to what's familiar. And maybe that's the whole point. Maybe heaven shakes your world to remind you it's not your home. You think you're losing, but you're not. You're just shedding. Every ending you're facing is a silent upgrade. Every person who left, every door that closed, every plan that collapsed. They're all making room for something greater. But because it doesn't look how you imagined, you resist it. You call it unfair when really it's alignment. You're not being punished. You're being repositioned. You're being moved out of what's expired into what's eternal. You can't see it yet because you're still grieving the temporary, still clinging to the old version of you that can't exist where you're going. Change doesn't destroy who you are. It reveals who you've been hiding. It forces you to confront yourself, your fears, your illusions. It strips away your pretenses until you have no choice but to stand as you are. And that's terrifying because most people don't know who they are without their pain. They've built their entire identity around survival, so when peace starts coming in, they mistake it for danger. When blessings start arriving, they sabotage them because they don't feel worthy. You ask for change, but you forgot to prepare for it. You wanted the promise, but not the process. The process is where it hurts. It's where the fire burns away the parts of you that can't go further. It's where you lose control, lose direction, lose comfort. And that's exactly where faith begins. Not in the knowing, but in the trusting. Not in the having, but in the surrender. You can't step into new territory while still carrying the weight of old battles. You can't walk into what's promised while clinging to what's familiar. The same fear that keeps you safe also keeps you stuck. And sometimes, heaven has to drag you out of comfort to remind you of your calling. It's not punishment. It's preparation. You think you're being abandoned, but you're being advanced. The shaking isn't rejection. It's realignment. Life removes what doesn't serve your next level, even when you cry for it to stay. Because sometimes the things you love the most are the same things that hold you hostage. Sometimes the people you cling to are the ones delaying your destiny. And heaven knows that if it left you comfortable, you'd never move. You'd stay in places you've outgrown, pretending it's peace when it's really decay. You can't pray for change and stay the same. You can't ask for growth and resist discomfort. You can't demand purpose and cling to distraction. Change always costs something. Your pride, your control, your routine, your illusions. But what it gives in return is priceless clarity, strength, truth, freedom. You can't receive what's meant for you while your hands are full of what was. So life starts taking things away, not to hurt you, but to free you, to make space for something greater. You may not understand it now. You may feel lost, betrayed, forgotten. But what's really happening is transition. You're not being buried. You're being planted. The darkness isn't your end, it's your beginning. Every storm, every loss, every closed door is just the sound of heaven rearranging your path. Because sometimes the only way to wake you up is to shake you up. And maybe that's why everything is shifting. Not to destroy you, but to show you who you were always meant to become. Growth begins the moment you stop defending your excuses. The moment you stop pretending you're fine when you're falling apart. The moment you stop blaming the world, the people, the timing, and finally admit that maybe, just maybe, you've been in your own way. Excuses are comfortable lies dressed as logic. They make failure sound noble. They let you sit still while convincing yourself you're trying. You know that voice, the one that says, "What's not the right time?" Or, "I'll start when I'm ready," or, "They don't understand me." That voice isn't protecting you. It's caging you. It's the lullaby your fear sings to keep you from waking up. Every person with potential has mastered the art of justifying stagnation. You tell yourself you're waiting for clarity when really you're just afraid of the unknown. You say you're planning when really you're hesitating. You build these beautiful stories around your fears, convincing yourself they're reasons. But they're not. They're chains. Soft, quiet, invisible chains that make you smile while they strangle your future. And every day you feed them, they grow stronger. Every time you make peace with mediocrity, you lose a little more of the fire you were born with. You say you want change, but your habits disagree. You say you want peace, but you keep entertaining chaos. You say you want to move forward, but you keep revisiting what broke you. Growth demands honesty, and honesty is painful because it reveals just how much of your suffering is self-inflicted. You can't grow while defending your limitations. You can't evolve while protecting your comfort. You've built a life around